Hello, and welcome to our webinar introducing the newest feature of Anapaya Edge, the SCION Secure Access Groups. My name is Kiveli, and I will be your host for today. Before we start with the actual content, I would like to give a short introduction of myself and Sam. As I said, my name is Kiveli, and I have been with the company for 4.5 years now, and I am the head of customer success. I'm working closely with customers and partners, supporting the whole journey from pre-sales to onboarding and customer and partner satisfaction phase. Today, our main speaker is Sam. Sam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Kiveli. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam, and I'm the CTO and a co-founder of Anapaya. Before founding Anapaya, I've been doing a PhD at ETH, where I was one of the principal SCION researchers. So SCION has been with me for 12 years now, and at Anapaya, my main focus is on product development, engineering, and research. Very happy to be here and telling you all about this new exciting future we have in store.
I would like to ask you, what is changing in the world of connectivity that makes organizations rethink their WAN setups? What insights can you provide?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for setting the stage. So how does enterprise connectivity look like today? I think what we have all seen over the past decade is really an explosion of interconnectivity requirements, right? Private internal network that just connect your different sites and branches are no longer enough. You need to integrate the cloud. You need to interconnect to partners, to suppliers. You might have services that you need to expose to your customers, right? And also the remote workforce that really, since the pandemic, increased a lot, requires you to be visible outside of your own little private island. On top of that, nowadays business applications are often consumed as a service, right? For example, an accounting software backend that runs somewhere in the cloud for you that you use for your own accounting, and all of this requires external connectivity outside of your internal network. And over the past decade, really enterprises have been forced to think outside of their own islands. How can I incorporate all of these different external factors, be it cloud, being third-party partners, being their own customers or employees, into their connectivity landscape?
So you said over the years, the interconnectivity needs of organizations have been constantly increasing. It is now much harder for an organization to keep all their connectivity needs under their own end-to-end control. Have there been any solutions today to mitigate these connectivity needs? How do organizations organize their networks?
As we have seen very clearly also in the poll, there's three main options today, right? They're the MPLS-based private networks. They're great for private connectivity. They're reliable, they're secure, you can control who is on that network, but they're quite rigid. On the other end of the spectrum, we have internet-based connectivity, be it directly accessing some API or then VPNs that are established over the internet for site-to-site connectivity. They are the exact opposite, right? They're very flexible because they use the public internet as an underlay. But obviously on the internet, you have no guarantees in terms of performance and also in terms of cyber risks. They're huge cyber risks. So these are two opposite sides of the spectrum. And companies have to usually combine both of them, one for internal, one for external connectivity. And that's really led then to the rise of software-defined wide area networks, SD-WAN. The benefit of SD-WAN is really that you don't have to exclusively choose one or the other, exclusively choose MPLS-based private networks or internet-based VPNs or connectivity. You are more flexible in that you can decide what kind of applications or what data streams should now be sent or can be sent over my private network, and for which do I need to use internet-based connectivity. With that being said, SD-WAN doesn't improve fundamentally on the weaknesses of both of these technologies. It just lets you combine them in a more flexible way. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the individual options, starting with the internet. The internet itself is great. I'm not challenging that, obviously, but we have today 25 billion devices on the internet, right? These are not just people, obviously. There are a lot of machines and machine-to-machine type of interactions. And it's projected that by 2030, this will double to 50 billion devices. Now, because the internet's greatest strength is really connecting everything with everyone, that also means that your critical infrastructure on the internet is exposed to potentially these 30 billion devices, right? Now, this opens you up to all kinds of cyber attacks. The biggest or the most famous ones are probably distributed denial of service attacks, right? Where many of these devices will target you and shoot traffic at you to bring you down. But that's not the only thing. It's also vulnerability scanning, right? They will scan your security perimeter, automatically find vulnerabilities and exploit this. This has really skyrocketed now with the advent of AI. So these are cyber risks. Obviously, there is no performance guarantees, right? The internet is a best effort network. It often works quite well, but for really mission critical applications, it's hard to engineer them in a way that they can use the internet reliably. And finally, on the internet, you don't have any control over how your data uses the network, right? And that might be a problem, especially for regulated industries where traffic can be rerouted around the world that might need to stay within a certain jurisdiction. So these are all risks and weaknesses of the internet. Despite its great flexibility, it's really a huge network, and there's huge risks involved by being such a huge network. Then the other side of the coin, the MPLS-based private networks. There you don't have to care about the 30 billion devices, right? Because they are not in your private network. And you can shield yourself from these threats, basically. The weakness of MPLS and private networks is the rigidity, the inflexibility, right? Adding, for example, a new site to your private network, that can take weeks, internationally even months, certainly not days or hours. And it's just really hard to scale that up. Besides, that is, I think, a very obvious shortcoming, but there's secondary shortcomings as well. Usually these private networks, they're provided by a single provider. That has to basically be the case, right? Everything is controlled by a single entity. And this single provider lock-in obviously provides another kind of business continuity risk. You put all your bags in one basket. If that basket is leaking, you lose all of your eggs, so to speak. And finally, MPLS, like we saw in the poll before, cost is not the main concern of our audience, but it is definitely a concern. MPLS, at least compared to internet, can be very expensive. Maybe nationally and regionally, it's quite good nowadays because it has been around for a long time. But especially interregionally or intercontinental, MPLS circuits can be very, very expensive.
So we see that in the current connectivity landscape, organizations kind of have to choose between being protective and then being also scalable, flexible, and cost-effective. In the first poll, we also saw some people reply that they're using SD-WAN. And the issue with SD-WAN is that it inherits the weaknesses of the underlying mediums it uses. So MPLS-based SD-WAN are still rigid and expensive, while internet VPN-based SD-WANs are using an inherently insecure underlay. Handling these rising connectivity needs has become quite a complex problem, And as we see in the Venn diagram, you really need to choose between the left-hand side, which is predictable routing and reduced attack surface, and the right-hand side, which is being more scalable, flexible, and cost-effective. Sam, back to you. I want to ask, is there a solution that can provide all four that is in exactly the middle of the Venn diagram here? We can have predictable routing, reduced attack surface, cost effectiveness, and scalability and flexibility.
Yeah, I think that's almost a rhetorical question, Kiveli, since we're in a webinar about SCION. And this is exactly where SCION and the new feature, SCION Secure Access Group, come in. They try to combine all of these different things together. Now, before I dive into exactly what the SCION Secure Access Groups are, I want to make a little detour to give new listeners that might have not heard much about SCION a quick idea what SCION is about. SCION is an interdomain routing architecture that we have developed over the past now 14 years at ETH and Anapaya mostly. And at the center of SCION is its ability to control network paths, right? For sender, this means they can choose the most appropriate path for any given data packet. For example, a path that never leaves a certain jurisdiction, like Switzerland, or a path that is latency optimized, etc. Right? But path control goes beyond that. For receivers, this means they can control who gets access to their path information, right? And we will come back to this very powerful capability when we talk about secure access group, because it's exactly the fundamental property that makes secure access groups work. Beyond path control, we have multipathing, native multipathing, which ensures extreme reliability, right? If you have a dozen, 2 dozen paths between any two destinations, between the sender and the receiver, your data will get from A to B if at least one of these paths works, right? Because SCION enables you to fail over within milliseconds between the different paths. And there's a very, very high chance that at least one of these options will work for you. And then finally, SCION has been designed with security kind of at its core. So all the network path information that you get from the network is cryptographically verifiable, giving you the trust and the confidence that when you have a path, you know exactly where it goes through, you know who is on that path, and you know, most importantly, that this path cannot be changed after the fact, right? So once you choose a path, you know your traffic is exactly following along this path and nowhere else. So that's kind of the protocol properties. How is this being deployed today? There are two main ingredients. There's the SCION backbone network, what we call the SCION internet. These are internet service providers, network operators that deploy SCION routers in their networks and interconnect them. And these SCION core routers, they build the backbone of the SCION network. And a SCION path, just to give you an idea, a SCION path is essentially a sequence of these routers between source and destination. Right, so that's the backbone. Then on the network edge, we have so-called SCION edge gateways. Our product is called Anapaya Edge or Anapaya Gate. These are two different flavors. Now these edge gateways, their primary purpose is really to translate between IP and SCION, right? Imagine if this translation wouldn't exist, then existing applications would need to be rewritten to speak this new network language, right, SCION. So we needed something that translates between IP and SCION, takes IP packets, sends them through a SCION network, and transforms them back to IP packets. So that's the primary purpose, seamless deployability. The secondary purpose then is, of course, to make the best possible path decision based on security policies, but also based on network performance, right? SCION gives you this power to choose paths, and these edge gateways are where this power is actually enacted. Edge gateways, or our edge product, this is used to for classical site-to-site connectivity, be it on-prem, be it virtual cloud sites, whereas the gate is more a carrier-grade solution where such an edge gateway, a SCION edge gateway, is run by the ISPs for their users, right? And this lets you basically make your SCION workloads or your applications reachable and expose them to individual users that do not themselves have a SCION edge gateway. So with this, the secure access groups are a natural extension. They enable you to control who gets access to your path information, right? They are used to build invisible, invite-only private networks on top of the SCION internet. So you combine the Anapaya Edge's capability to translate between IP and SCION and making optimal path decisions with this ability to gate control to your, or provide access control to your path information. And you can basically build this private overlay, right? And in this example that you see here, we have a secure access group between HQ, cloud, and the branch office, right? They're all connected to the SCION internet with edge gateways, Anapaya edge gateways. And they're configured, or the path infrastructure is configured that only HQ, cloud, and branch office can see each other's path information, right? For literally everybody else, these three sites do not even exist, because without the necessary path information, it's impossible to send a single packet and let alone mount an attack or anything else against these sites. Now, how is ensured that only HQ, cloud, and the branch office get access to their respective paths, right? This is where the SCION public key infrastructure comes into play. For those of you who are more familiar with SCION, each of these sites, or each Anapaya edge gateway, has a SCION certificate, right? They need to have a SCION certificate to be actually part of the SCION internet. And based on this certificate, they can identify themselves and prove who they are. And so based on this very strong identification, it is ensured that only they get access to this path information. So in a way, SCION Secure Access Group is really a paradigm shift. Instead of being by default on an internet, right? And then trying to keep others out with security means like firewalls, etc. You're by default off, and you only make yourself visible to desired endpoints. And the best is that all of this can be configured within minutes, and this I will demonstrate later in this webinar.
So you mentioned access control, you mentioned trust, you mentioned default off. What does this mean in practice? What can my organization gain by using secure access groups in practice?
Right. How does this actually translate to business benefits? On kind of the operational side, it gives you invisibility. It gives you essentially zero external attack surface, right? As I mentioned before, what you cannot see, you cannot target. And that obviously has great implications on your security posture, right? You're essentially immune to network level attacks that target you, right? Because how should traffic even reach you? That means volumetric DDoS attacks. That means automated vulnerability scanning. For all of that, you're immune because these cannot even get to you. What that also means is that you can radically simplify your perimeter, right? You might still want to use a firewall, obviously, because you can be, you also want to protect yourself from kind of threats from within. But your firewall doesn't have to scale anymore with the size of the internet, right? It can be much smaller. The amount of traffic that you get is much smaller. The amount of alerts that you get in your security operations center is much smaller. So it really simplifies your security posture. And obviously, that to some extent also exists on MPLS private networks. But here is what what SCION Secure Access Groups gives you on top of that is really this scalability and flexibility. Because the SCION internet is an internet, and because you're just configuring basically access control to your path information, it's very, very easy to extend these, to integrate new sites that you have, but also to integrate third-party entities into your secure access group. Obviously, they also need to be on the SCION internet, but once that is there, this is a software-defined invisible private network. So operationally, this gives you, and business continuity-wise, this gives you great benefits. But we can even make an argument that it's a great return of investment, purely financially. And the argument goes like this. Cyber attacks are rising roughly by 25% each year, right? This leads to an increased security spending of roughly 20% to keep up with the increased cyber risk, right? If the attackers beef up, you also need to beef up your own defenses. This is necessary because of this, default on posture that you have, for example, on the internet, right? Again, the number of connected devices will double by 2030 to 50 billion. Now, obviously, if you have more attack power against you, you need to ramp up your own security. And that leads to this increased spending on software licenses, on hardware, but also on personnel that can actually, follow up on these and prevent these intrusion attempts, for example. Now, with secure access groups and SCION, you don't have to go along with this scalability, right? Because you don't care whether there are 25 billion or 50 billion or 100 billion devices on the internet. You're invisible to all of them. And that will lead to a much more constant cybersecurity spending. Obviously, it will also increase over time, but much slower. And over the years, you will see a drastic cost saving on the cybersecurity spending, on the network security aspects of it.
We see that with SCION Secure Access Groups, organizations become invisible from the public internet and essentially reduce their external attack surface to zero. At the same time, as you just mentioned, organizations can still have a scalable and flexible setup where adding new sites, adding new connections come without a big overhead or big cost. This approach also helps organizations keep their cybersecurity related costs in check, since with SCION, the cost no longer grows proportionally with the number of attackers in the network. This all sounds quite interesting and quite impactful, but it would be very valuable to show our audience, the organizations, how they can actually migrate to a setup with secure access groups. Sam, could you give us a demo of how this works in practice?
Yes, I'm very happy to give you a demo and also use this opportunity to showcase the power of our Anapaya console. So what you see here is our console, which is the cloud-based orchestrator for your SCION infrastructure. We have here now a new integration for SCION Secure Access Groups. I've already created one, the Anapaya internal WAN. So if you click on it, you can see who is in there, which sites are in there. The HQ, we have a private site in AWS, one in Azure. And you can also see there are two different types of secure access groups that we support out of the box, which is either a full mesh or then a hub and spoke, and we'll come to the hub and spoke later. The full mesh means all of these sites see each other and they can communicate with each other, right? So if we go to the dashboard, for example, we can visualize this secure access group between the different sites, and it's nicely highlighted the path segments that are actually hidden in green here. They are only visible to these different sites here, right? Now I want to show you how I can now create a new secure access group where I integrate third-party connections into my network. So to show you this, I will quickly change the organization. So here we have a distribution partner, right? That is one of our partners that we use. And if I look here right now, they cannot see any paths to this Anapaya HQ here, right? Because they're not in the secure access group with Anapaya HQ, and thus they don't have any path information how to get there. And this is something now we want to change. So I'm going to switch back to the Anapaya organization and create a new secure access group, third-party connections. I could give it a description, but let's leave this out for now. And here I'm going to use this hub and spoke template. Hub and spoke because I will add multiple third parties to it, but they don't need to talk to each other, right? They don't even need to know about each other. They only need to talk to me, to the Anapaya HQ in this case. So I can use the hub and spoke template. And now I will invite basically the sites I want in there. So I add myself here, the Anapaya HQ, as a hub. And I will add the accounting AS and the distribution partner as spokes. So they now get invited, obviously, because we are not controlling them. They need to accept this invitation, right? So I can, for example, go back here to the accounting supplier, and now I see, okay, I've been invited to this third-party connection secure access group. I accept this, and I will now need to publish which of my links I want to make available in the secure access groups. I usually publish all of them. I also forgot this in the Anapaya organization. Obviously, in this third-party access group, I also want to publish all of my links. See here, I already got an update of the supplier that published their links. And now in the distribution partner, I need to obviously do the same, right? I accept the invitation. Now here in ASs, from the distribution partner's point of view, it can only see itself as a spoke and the Anapaya HQ as the hub, and it will also add its links. And now what the console does, it configures the path infrastructure with this access control, but we obviously also need to deploy it to our edge appliances, right? So I can do this. This is all automatically generated for you. So I can simply deploy it. I can even look at what's actually changing. But I just want to deploy this to the Anapaya edge appliances in question. And now we can go back to the dashboard. And what I can see here now is I'm in a secure access group with the Anapaya HQ. I can now see these links, right? And also, if I now go here, now I can see I'm using I now have a path that I can use to the HQ. And it's really as simple as this, right? We made ourselves visible, and now we can connect. We can have a connection between Anapaya HQ and this third-party distribution partner. That's what I wanted to show. Obviously, this will land in console very soon, and you will have the opportunity to use all of this. Again, what needs to be said, it's this simple if everybody is already on the SCION internet. That's that must be said.
Thank you for the demo, Sam. At this point, I would like to do a summary of everything we discussed today, and afterwards we'll pass to a Q&A. So with the secure access groups, organizations no longer need to have this trade-off choosing between privacy and security, as well as scalability, because with SCION and with secure access groups, we don't just do a band-aid solution to parts of the problem of the internet, we fix it at the root level. With secure access groups, you can have zero attack surface, you can simplify your operations, your security posture, your management requirements. At the same time, you can still have a scalable setup connecting easily third-party suppliers, your own network, other connectivities needs that you have in an immediate way. You saw Sam already demonstrated this in just a few minutes. We support a multi-environment connectivity, on-premise data centers, cloud services, remote offices. This is a very diverse setup of options where you can easily connect on SCION with secure access groups, and you can still have significant business impact with predictable routing, with keeping your cybersecurity related costs in control in the rising world of the public internet and the public internet attack surface and number of devices on the network. I would like to thank you all for attending this webinar. Thank you for your insightful questions. Thank you for the time and have a really nice day.